But one cannot make a huge major point out of this, because latrevo is used of the Messiah in Daniel 7, in some versions of the Septuagint, not all. And we do know from other biblical literature at the time, in the 1st century, that latrevo was used even for Adam. So it is certainly true that it happens that latrevo is not used of Jesus in the New Testament. That could be by chance. It's a nice distinction, but you cannot say that because somebody is latrevoed, therefore he is God. That might work in it would work in the New Testament. It wouldn't work in Daniel 7, where the Messiah is latrevoed. And I think in the Odes of Solomon, is it? We found it the other day. The life of Adam and Eve. Sorry, the life of Adam and Eve. Some of the pseudepigraphal literature, you do find the use of latrevo. If you consult the International Critical Commentary on Daniel 7, you'll find some comments there where latrevo is used of human beings. You see, words are not static things. The use of latrevo in Old Testament times might vary from the use it happens to have in the New Testament, and that might vary in turn from some occasional uses outside the New Testament. So it's interesting, but not absolutely final in terms of the status of Jesus. You are to define Jesus by who he is, his origin, his birth. Where does he come from? Not by what is done to him. People make this mistake. They say, oh, well, Jesus is worshipped, and we know that only God can be worshipped, therefore Jesus is God. That is terribly feeble as an argument. Or that he did miracles and therefore he's God. Or that he walked on the water and therefore he's God. Well, Peter walked on the water, not so well, I know that. But miracles were done by the apostles and others, that's quite clear. The mistake is to try to determine who somebody is by what is done to him. That doesn't work. Use other criteria to define the one God as the only one who is true God. John 17:3, 1,300 times ortheos means God in the New Testament. Jesus is called God twice for certain in a secondary sense. One of them is Psalm 45, where thy throne, O God, little g in the NAB, nicely translated in the New American Bible, little g there, because God has given him that privilege of being God. Moses is called God. This is not difficult at all. 1,300 times the Father is called God. He's the only one who is true God. There's only one Yahweh. That is 7,000 times. Yahweh is never ever with plural verbs or adjectives. Impossible. He's a single divine person. What happened in post-biblical times was a disaster, because all of that rather easy material was retranslated into Greek philosophical terminology. That's telling the Bible story in another language. And the Greek philosophical language is not something that Jesus would have been interested in. Absolutely devastating. God was said to be one ousia, one being. You will not find the word ousia as being for God anywhere in the New Testament. So it's really a disaster when you start speaking another language and then imposing it on the Bible. It risks the awful threat of teaching tradition rather than truth. And that's a very threatening warning from Jesus. You have not to define somebody's status by what's done to him, because we have the word prosephiome, to pray, are used of human beings in the Septuagint. I think it's in Isaiah 45. I remember the exact verse. Is it 45, 40? Have a look at that. You'll find that people are praying to God's people and worshipping. You'll find Revelation 3:9 that the saints are going to be worshipped. Proskuneo. Beautiful passage in 1 Samuel 25, where this wonderful woman, Abigail, who later became a wife of David, gets off her donkey and worships him and says, my Lord, Adoni, not Adonai, of course, not Lord God. Adoni, my Lord the King, I see that God is working his work through you. So that person was worthy of a great deal of honor, and she worships David as my Lord the King, 50 times in the Old Testament, my Lord the King. That's who Jesus is. He's the supreme example of my Lord the King. Adoni, Psalm 110:1, never ever Adonai, the Lord God. That's a remarkable passage. A remarkable passage. Along with Isaiah 19, which speaks of Assyria, my people, Israel, my people, and what's the other one? Israel, Egypt, and Assyria. Three nations who are as national units converted. That's not true today. That's marvelous. That's the beautiful millennial picture when the earth will be teeming with people